This is the story of a man who survived his own execution and came back to dismantle an empire, one name at a time. They cuffed his hands, shot him, lit the car on fire, walked away before the screams stopped. To them, he was just a cleaner, a loyal tool, disposable. But fire doesn't always finish the job. He crawled out of that inferno with scorched skin and a bullet in his side and no name left to protect. How the men who laughed as they buried him are vanishing, one by one. Each death carries a message. Each silence is earned. And at the end of this trail of blood and bone sits the man who gave the order, waiting because the one they tried to erase didn't just survive. He evolved. And now he's come to finish what they started, the thick layers of fire. The metal cuffs bit into my wrists as the fire climbed through the frame of the car. Smoke swirled thick and sour, coating my lungs with each desperate breath. I was sprawled in the back seat like roadkill, a bullet lodged somewhere near my ribs and the stink of gasoline crawling up my nose. The heat wasn't the worst part. It was the silence, the kind that only comes when you realize someone you trusted wanted you dead. That someone was Vincent Callahan. To the world, Vincent was the clean face of the underworld. Sharp suits, high-rise offices, champagne toasts with politicians, and charity dinners with celebrities. But underneath the polish was rot. And I was his shadow. I cleaned up the blood, broke bones, fixed mistakes with fists and fire. And when a deal with the Esteban cartel fell apart, when bodies hit the floor and someone had to take the fall, Vincent didn't hesitate. He handed me over like trash in a suit. I remember his voice on the phone, right before it happened. Smooth, calm. He said, "Just one more job, Charlie, real simple. Pick up a case, drop it off, in and out." What he didn't say was that the case was wired, the warehouse was rigged, and the men waiting there were Vincent's own. The ones I used to drink with, laugh with, kill with. They put one in my side. Not the head, not the heart, just enough to bleed slow. Then they tossed me into the back of a stolen Chrysler, doused it with gas, lit the trunk, and drove it into a dead-end alley. They left a note in my pocket. Neat handwriting. 5 words. It was always going to be you. But fire's a funny thing. Unpredictable. It warped the back seat and melted the cuffs just enough. I don't remember how I got out. Just flames and screams and the taste of blood. I dragged myself out on my belly, ribs scraping pavement, skin blistering from heat and hate. They said I died. They were almost right. The hospital didn't ask questions. I had no name, no ID. Burns across my chest and left side, infection, organs failing. The nurses told the cops I was a homeless junkie who lit himself on fire trying to cook meth. No one came for me. No one ever does when the job is silenced. But I lived. It took 6 months before I could stand without blacking out. Another year before my hands stopped shaking. I watched the world move on from a basement bed in a halfway house where the walls sweated mold and the ceiling leaked. Vincent went on to bigger things. Moved into international shipping, cleaned up his image, more suits, fewer bodies. He changed his crew, promoted the ones who stayed silent. I recognized the names. I'd worked beside most of them. Sam DeLuca ran guns out of Ohio. My best man once. Pete Larson, money launderer, used to call me brother. Nico Vega, cleaner like me, except dirtier. I kept track. Didn't speak, didn't reach out. It just healed. I worked small jobs, construction, dishwashing, night shifts in back alleys where no one asked about the burns. I trained in the dark, stole a car, learned to shoot left hand, learned how to make silence feel like a knife. And when I was ready, I went hunting. Sam was first. He still liked strip clubs and scotch, liked being seen, liked the taste of being untouchable. I watched him for 3 weeks. Every Thursday night he left his loft, stopped at the same bar on the corner of Brinker and 19th, always alone, always drunk by 10. I slit his throat in the alley behind the bar with a broken bottle he dropped hours earlier. He never saw me coming. The last thing he saw was my burned face inches from his. He recognized me. That was the point. I left his wallet, his watch, didn't take a thing, just left his body sprawled over a crate, mouth frozen in shock, and in his breast pocket I slipped a matchbook from the Blue Orchid, our old meeting spot. Blood smeared the logo. It made the papers. They said it was a mugging gone wrong. The cops had no leads. Pete was next. He'd gotten fat, soft, lived in a gated condo in Palm Beach surrounded by trophies and women who smiled through their teeth. He ran his empire from behind a screen now, numbers and wires. But I knew his routine. Morning jogs with earbuds and expensive shoes. I followed him at 5 a.m. No one on the streets, just us and the sound of rubber on pavement. When we passed a dark alley, I grabbed him by the mouth and pulled him in. I didn't use a blade. I used piano wire. It took 20 seconds. His eyes bulged, his legs kicked. He never screamed. When he slumped, I tucked something in his waistband. Oh, business card. Vincent's. Soaked in whiskey and blood. That made the news too. The feds showed up. Brief mentions of connections to organized crime. Then it vanished. Just like Pete. The others started getting nervous. Vincent moved with bodyguards, doubled his security, but he never made a statement, never mourned. That wasn't his style. He buried secrets under concrete and bills. But I was one secret that clawed out. Nico tried to run. Took a private jet out of Vegas. I had someone on the tarmac. Paid him cash to delay the flight, long enough for me to catch up. I found Nico in a motel near Phoenix, alone, drunk. His eyes went wide when I kicked in the door. "Charlie," he said, "Jesus. I thought I know what you thought." He begged, cried, promised he didn't pull the trigger. Said he warned Vincent not to do it. Said he left me that note as a joke. I let him talk. Then I broke every finger in his hands, one by one. Then I lit the room on fire and dragged him into the bathtub. Watched the flames crawl up the wallpaper while he sobbed. "You don't get to burn," I said. "You get to scream." I left before the roof collapsed. No one pulled him out. By the end of that week, Vincent's empire started cracking. His men whispered. His partners got nervous. 3 of his top enforcers were gone, and no one had answers. But Vincent knew. He remembered the Chrysler, the fire, the bullet. He knew who was coming. So he ran. Thought he could hide. But I'd followed his scent through blood and fire. And I wasn't done. Vincent didn't run far. Cowards like him never do. He traded city skylines for private bunkers, luxury suites for isolated estates, men with guns for security cameras and biometric locks. But hiding behind tech doesn't matter when the threat already knows the rhythm of your heartbeat. I let him run for a while, watched from the smoke. His face didn't show up in public for months. No parties, no press. Just whispers through back channels that Vincent Callahan had gone underground. I listened to those whispers. I followed them to the edges. The trail led to a private compound outside Santa Fe. No name, no number. Just 10 acres of desert ringed with fences and steel gates. He hired mercs, not the kind that used to work with us. Foreign boys, ex-military, high-end, expensive, paranoid. He had reason to be. The compound was a fortress, one way in, walls laced with motion sensors, heat scans, automated turrets, even dogs. Vincent spared no cost. I didn't care. I watched the routines. Shift changes, patrol laps, night patterns. It took weeks. I ate dust and moved through the sagebrush like a shadow, memorizing their steps, watching for cracks. It was the water supply that gave me my opening. Big place like that needs clean water. He brought in tanker trucks weekly, drivers on payroll. I watched the same one come 3 times. The 3rd time, I killed him. Quick, clean, no blood on the uniform, no noise. just a broken neck and a shallow grave under a dry wash. Then I took his place. The uniform was loose on my frame. I had lost weight since the fire. But the cap fit, the ID checked, the guards scanned me without a glance. Protocol did the rest. No one looks at the help when they're carrying hoses. Inside, I moved slow, casual, no sudden turns. Just another invisible man in blue coveralls dragging a waterline toward the east side of the property. Vincent's wing. It was bigger than I expected, 2 stories, floor-to-ceiling glass, solar panels across the roof, the kind of place that screams clean to hide the rot beneath. I left the hose running and slipped into the back hallway through an unsecured maintenance door. No one saw me, no cameras in that section. The weak point, always behind the scenes. I found the servant quarters first. Neutralized 3 men in their sleep. No mess, just silence, took their radios and moved on. The guards went next. I used gas. Something I picked up from an old job in Berlin. Tasteless, odorless. They were snoring before they hit the floor. 20 minutes and every hired gun in the building was unconscious or dead. Then it was just me. And Vincent, I made sure he didn't sleep through it. It triggered the fire alarm, woke the place like thunder. He came stumbling out of his panic room with a gun in hand and sweat pouring down his face. Alone, confused, eyes darting from corner to corner, expecting war. He got me instead. He froze when he saw me. "Charlie," he whispered. I raised my hand. Showed him the burn on my left palm, the same hand he saw melt against the car window 3 years ago. His face cracked. "No," he said. This isn't possible." "Neither was surviving a fire in the back of a locked Chrysler," I said. "But here we are." He lifted the gun. His hand shook. "You don't want to do this." "You're right," I said. "I want to do more." I shot him in the leg. The right one. Watched him fall like dead weight. He screamed, crawled backward across the tile, blood slicked behind him. "I gave you everything," he gasped. "You were nothing. I made you." "You made me bleed." I kicked the gun away and grabbed him by the collar. Dragged him through the house, down the hallway, past the bodies, past the blood. He cried when he saw them, the guards, the staff, the mercs he paid to protect him, all gone. I threw him into a chair in the center of the living room. Tied his arms, tight. Way beneath the thick layers of ice. "Why should I?" he whispered. "You got out. You lived. Why come back?" "Because dying isn't the same as being finished." I pulled a chair across from him, sat down, let him look at me. Really look. "You didn't just try to kill me," I said. "You made it personal. You made it art. You left me in a burning car with a goodbye note. It was business. You burned the wrong man." He shook, sweat poured down his face, his hands twitched. "I can fix this," he said. "Money, power. You want a clean slate, you can have it. Just let me go. You think I want your world?" I leaned forward. "I want you to watch it die." And then I took out my phone, showed him the video. One by one, I'd recorded the moments. Sam's last breath, Pete's bulging eyes, Nico's screams, all stitched together, raw, unedited, every second of it. I made him watch. He cried, he screamed, he vomited, he tried to close his eyes. I taped them open. When it ended, I leaned close. "That's what you built," I said. "That's what you protected?" "Please," he whimpered. "Please, just kill me." I smiled. "You don't get to die yet." I stood and walked to the wall safe. Knew the code. He used the same one for everything. His mother's birthday. Inside were files, ledgers, photos, insurance policies, everything needed to burn his empire to ash. I left them all on the table. Then I doused them in gasoline. "Your secrets are ashes now," I said. You'll never get away with this. I already did. I took his phone, called a number I hadn't used in 3 years, a contact in the FBI. Old favor. Time to cash it in. I have everything, I said. Names, numbers, bodies, coordinates. They said they'd come. I looked back at Vincent one last time. Enjoy your empire, I said. They'll be here in 15. He screamed when I walked out the front door. I didn't turn around. I wanted him to sit there and listen to the sirens as they came for the bones of everything he built. I wanted him to remember my face, the one he left behind, and know that the man he tried to bury came back to watch him drown. I didn't stay to watch the feds take him. Didn't need to. I'd already taken the only thing that mattered, his power. Not just the guns and muscle and stacks of dirty money, but the fear he held over men's lives. That fear was gone now, swallowed in the fire I left behind. But I wasn't done. Vincent Callahan wasn't the only one who left me in that car. He wasn't alone when they handed me over to the men with the gas cans and the duct tape. There were others. Quiet voices in back rooms, silent nods around the table, boardroom wolves wearing cufflinks and cologne. They helped plan the fall, and they needed to fall harder. I spent the next 3 months unraveling what was left. The empire was in chaos. With Vincent gone, the crew fractured. His lieutenants turned on each other like starving dogs. Some tried to grab territory, some fled. Others thought they could stay low and ride the storm out. They didn't know the storm still had a name. First was Owen Grady, old friend, helped launder the cartel money that triggered the whole thing. Smiled at me across poker tables while setting the fuse. He'd moved to Chicago, thought a new name and a clean condo downtown would keep him safe. I let him think that for a while. Watched him jog each morning, eat dinner with his girlfriend, live a life like his hands weren't covered in blood. I broke into his place while he was gone, left a photo on his pillow, me, burned, eyes blank. Under it, I wrote one line. You watched me burn, now I watch you. He moved the next day. Hired security. Bought a gun, slept in shifts. Didn't matter. When I came for him, I didn't knock. I walked through the front door at 3 a.m. while his guards lay drugged and unconscious in their van. He woke to a hand over his mouth and a knife pressed under his chin. Never wanted it, he whispered. You didn't stop it either. I didn't slit his throat. I made him talk. Every name, every number, where the final players were hiding. Then I tied him up, shoved him in his own bathtub, and left the water running cold until it flooded the floor. He died shaking. Not from the knife or the hyssop, what he saw in my eyes. Next came Conrad Doyle, lawyer. Enabler. He made the fake identities, covered the paper trail. He was the reason no one looked for me after the fire. The man behind the lie that I never existed. I found him in a suite in Miami, surrounded by women, drink in hand, sunburned and smug. I didn't kill him fast. I dragged him out through the hall in nothing but a towel, tied him to a beach chair on his own balcony, and carved the truth into his chest with a wine opener. Justice doesn't wear a suit, he screamed until his throat tore. Let the neighbors hear it, let them all see what silence buys. He bled out while I lit his penthouse on fire from the inside. 2 more names on the list. Mallory Hayes, government mole, FBI asset gone bad. She'd worked both sides, feeding Vincent inside information while covering up the evidence I'd left behind. She was sharp, efficient, cruel. She was also careful. She vanished the day Vincent's estate was raided, changed her hair, her voice, moved through airports like a ghost. But I had her face burned into my memory. She turned up in Idaho, working under a new name as a corporate advisor for a company laundering money through green energy grants. I waited outside her office in the dark, watched her get into her car. When she turned on the ignition, the speakers clicked. My voice. You should have buried me deeper. She looked up, saw the rearview mirror. Saw my face. She never got the chance to scream. I didn't kill her in the car, I took her out into the forest. Same kind she left me in. Tied her to a tree and forced her to read out every lie she told, every deal she brokered, every soul she sold. Then I left her there, alone, with a flare stuck in the dirt and a trail of blood leading back to the road. Let the animals finish it. The last name? Thomas Bishop, he wasn't a soldier, not a lawyer, not even a criminal in the traditional sense. He was worse. He was the man who made Vincent bulletproof. A judge. He buried investigations, sealed files, signed warrants with a pen dipped in blood. He gave the machine its mask. And he was still sitting pretty in New York. Same seat, same smug smile. Lecturing on law at universities while collecting bribes under the table. He thought the storm missed him. I made sure it didn't. I walked into his lecture hall in broad daylight, stood in the back until he finished his speech about justice and accountability. Then I raised my hand. He looked confused. Question? He asked. I walked to the front, slow and quiet. Students turned, eyes followed. No one stopped me. Yeah, I said. Just one. I pulled the recorder from my pocket. Played the voice files I stole from his phone. Every phone call with Vincent. Every buried case. The room went silent. The students watched their idol unravel. Then I leaned in close and whispered, "This is where your kingdom ends." He called security. They came. But by then, every student had already uploaded the recordings. Every media outlet in the country got a copy. And Thomas Bishop, he lost everything. Barred, shamed, spit on in the street. He hung himself 3 days later in a motel off Route 40. Didn't even leave a note. Didn't need to. By the end of the year, there were no names left. No more men behind curtains. No more voices in boardrooms. Just ashes and me. The last piece was Vincent. Not the man tied to a chair in his mansion while the feds hauled him away. That man died the day I made him watch the footage of his crew falling, one by one. No, the piece that remained was the echo he left in the world, the shell of his empire, the ripple in the filth. And that needed to be cleaned. They moved him to a federal facility under sealed orders, minimum contact, no visitors, witness protection and everything but name. But I knew better. You don't keep a man like Vincent alive to protect him. You keep him alive to use him. They needed what was left in his head, his contacts, his records, his leverage. And that made him vulnerable. I spent the next 6 months tracking the men who moved him, traced the Marshal teams, intercepted encrypted communications, paid off a coder in Baltimore to break a string of government location updates. The last one placed him in a transfer convoy, heading north through Nevada under cover of night. I caught them outside a gas station 20 miles from the Utah border. 2 black SUVs, 1 unmarked van. No backup. I disabled the lead vehicle with a spike strip, took out the lights on the tail car with a suppressed shot. Then I opened the van's rear door before the driver even registered the hit. Vincent sat in the back, shackled and stunned. He didn't scream. He didn't speak. Just stared at me with dead eyes as I pulled him out and shoved him into the back of my car. The marshals lived. I left them with zip ties and a warning carved into the hood of their van. This wasn't about you. I drove him into the salt flats. Miles of nothing, open space. A sky too wide for lies. The kind of place where noise disappears and the wind feels like judgment. He hadn't said a word the entire time. I stopped the car and dragged him out. Threw him into the dirt. He coughed once. Rolled to his back, looked up at the stars. "You did it," he said, voice cracked. "They're all gone." I nodded. "You won." "No," I said. "You lost. There's a difference." He laughed, a hollow, rattling sound. "They'll rebuild. New names, new blood. You can't burn it all." "I don't have to," I said. "Just this part." I tossed him a phone. He caught it with shaking hands. On the screen was a video feed. His old headquarters. Once a tower of glass and marble in the middle of downtown, now a smoldering ruin. I rigged the explosives 2 days ago, timed it with a data dump. Every file, every secret, every lie. Released to the press, the public, the families of the dead, a decade of rot laid bare. The building came down in a roar of dust and steel. Vincent watched it collapse, mouth open. "That was everything," he whispered. "All of it." "Exactly." He looked at me, real fear in his eyes for the first time. "What now?" he asked. I pulled a chair from the trunk and sat across from him. "Now you watch," I said. "Watch what?" "What the world looks like without you in it." For hours we sat in silence. The sun came up slow, casting long shadows across the flats. Vincent trembled in the cold, lips turning blue. I didn't offer him water. I didn't offer warmth. This was his "End no trial, no" headline. Just a man forced to sit in the wreckage of everything he built. When he finally broke, it was quiet. "I'm sorry," he said, "for what I did to you." "I'm not," I said. "Because without it, I'd still be you." I left him there, chained to the earth. No food, no signal, just wind and silence, and the weight of all his ghosts. I walked until the car disappeared behind the haze of heat and distance. I didn't look back. I wasn't Charlie Monroe anymore. That man burned in a car 3 years ago. What came out of that fire didn't need a name, just purpose, just closure. And now that I had it, I could finally disappear. No more bodies, no more blood, just silence. And the knowledge that justice, real justice, isn't something served in courtrooms or sealed files. It's what happens when the last scream fades and the last breath is your own, and you're left with nothing but the truth.